What's up, everybody? Welcome back to What Is This Podcast? I am Dave. With me, as always, is my boy Gene. What up, Gene?
Yo, what's going on?
Not much. How you doing, man?
Same old, my man. How you been?
Not too bad. Not too bad. So tonight, whenever the hell you're listening to this, we have a special episode, a special guest. We're doing an interview today. So I guess let's just get right into it without further ado. Introducing my man JFliz.
What's up,
man?
boys? What's going
What's
on?
going on? What's happening, bro? What's going on?
And thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah,
Great.
man.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, no, this is dope. I've been watching some of the podcasts. It's been a good time.
I appreciate that, bro.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So what's going on with you, man? How's everything going?
Good. No complaints. Keeping busy. Music wise and work wise and home wise, and I was just darting around like an asshole trying to get lunches made for kids for school and getting showered up and getting everybody settled and so I could sit down and do this without any interruptions. So yeah, it's always a grind and a hustle. It's 24/7, but it's good. Everything's good.
Yeah, man. I know what that's like.
Yep.
Right now you've just got so much going on. Like this past year, it's just been pretty epic for you, man. It's been pretty amazing to just witness.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, it's definitely been crazy. I don't know really how or why, but once Grown dropped in November, the outreach since then has just been like wild. It hit a lot of people's ears. I think a lot of people connected with that. And then since then, I haven't had to make a beat since. I made all the beats on that album because at the time I wasn't working with any producers. I wasn't really doing anything. I dove back in. I did that whole album by myself. And then since then, it's just been project after project, single after single. I have multiple things lined up already, and I already have projects lined up going into next year, which is awesome, but it's been crazy. It was pretty dicey trying to keep up with everything for a while. I was working on 3 projects at once. All 3 of them are done. One already came out, which was Devil at the Pulpit, which just dropped 2 weeks ago. And now there's a lot more stuff on deck. So it's been wild.
So that all sounds amazing and exciting, but how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where it all started? When did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
I've definitely been writing and making music since literally elementary school. Literally 3rd grade, I was writing rhymes in class instead of paying attention to what I should have been doing.
Sure.
And all through middle school, I was just writing in my pad. High school, same thing, started cutting class. Me and my friend at the time, he had turntables, so we'd go spin records and freestyle. And
That's dope.
Just typical, young kid shit, and never had fun, but wasn't too serious. And then 2012 is when I dropped my first legit album.
Yeah.
Full-blown studio. I did it at the Bridge Sound and Stage in Cambridge with Archetype and all those dudes.
Shout out to them.
And I had a lot of pretty big artists, Esoteric was on that album.
Yeah.
Planetary, XL was on that. My boy Alias was on that. So that's when I kind of wanted to really get into it and take it more serious. So I put out stuff for 2012 to 2017-ish, 2018. And then when my son was born, my first son, I took a break and I just did the family thing, the dad thing. Sure. Wasn't sure if I was going to get back into music or not. I knew I wanted to. I missed it a ton when I was away from it. But I wasn't sure what was going to happen, honestly. I kind of got to the point I was like, I don't know, dad, I work obviously full time, and sure. I was like, I don't know, maybe the music thing's behind me. And I don't know, COVID hit. And honestly, talking to Dave and the guys is kind of what gave me the idea to start recording at home. Because originally it was like, oh, he's like, we could, do our own instruments from this place and that place and piece it together and do.
Sure.
And I was like, word, I'm down. I was like, I just want to make music again. And, these motherfuckers didn't do shit.
Just to clarify real quick, just to jump in, what he's talking about is Joe and I were in a band together back in the day called North of Boston. And so what he's talking about is we stopped playing 2011.
Yeah.
Or it was around the time that you started making
all from nothing. So
solo stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was when COVID started, we were all talking about getting the band back together, so to speak. Yep. And then out of that, I'd say Joe did the most work.
Yeah. I mean, again, us as a group, nothing has come to fruition. It doesn't mean it won't, but I'm grateful we even had the conversation because it kind of just lit another fire under my ass and realized how much I miss making music. So, I mean, since then, I put out, I think 3 standalone singles this year, one of them with Mr. Sophomore here. I put out Devil at the Pulpit, which came out 2 weeks ago. I've got a feature single that's dropping this upcoming Friday.
Okay.
Another one that's dropping June 4th. My next EP drops June 22nd. And there's more on deck after that. So
he's not fucking around.
Yeah, I tell everybody I'm just kind of making up for lost time.
No, I respect that. I respect that. But let me ask you this. So like, do you have any memories of like the very first hip hop record that you were exposed to? A lot of rappers have stories like that where, they would put on like a record, a vinyl from one of their parents or something like that, put it on and would immediately fall in love with the art form.
Yep. I mean, so growing up, I did not listen to hip hop for my first, 10 years or so. I grew up on like classic rock, blues. Sure. That's what my dad listened to. So that's what I grew up on originally. But somehow, some way, like early, like it was probably 3rd-ish grade because I started writing, I guess there weren't rhymes, but they were just lyrics.
Sure.
But that was about the time when like somehow this little white kid from the suburbs, I stumbled across Nas and Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep.
That will do it.
And the first tape I ever stole was Illmatic from Caldor.
From Caldor,
bro. It was, I was walking with my mom and she was looking at linens or whatever else. And I was like, I'll be over here looking at the music. And bro, I snatched that Illmatic tape real quick. So, I mean, that was kind of definitely one of the first. So it was all the East Coast stuff. And then, like shortly after that, like, again, my early years, like my early teens, like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Like I remember getting Eternal 1999, the CD for Christmas one year.
East 1999, my nigga.
That shit's classic. I mean, so I was very young. I kind of stumbled into it. I didn't really have friends that were exposing me to it. But it just kind of happened that way. But if I was to pick like one, I would say like stealing that tape from Caldor kind of set it off for sure.
Shout out to Caldors.
Yeah, seriously. I might have put you guys out of business. I don't know.
So how many tapes do you think you actively stole from Caldor?
It probably wasn't that many. It was maybe like a half a dozen. I think I distinctly remember Illmatic. I'm pretty sure I stole 36 Chambers. I'm pretty sure I stole that. I forget what else. I stole other shit. And then when CDs got big, I used to go to Best Buy and steal CDs. Yeah. I was an asshole, man. I did some dumb stuff. But yeah, so that was my MO back then. So
that's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird question, but like, me myself, I early on I dabbled a little bit of rap, but quickly realized that wasn't for me, and kind of more focused on the the beat side of things, the production side of things. And growing up, there were always these songs or beats that I would hear that I was just pissed off that I didn't make it. Are there any songs like that for you? Like you would hear songs like, man, I really wish that I wrote this song.
I don't know. That's a different question. I don't know. I've never thought about it. I mean, and I can't think of an example right off the top of my head, but I know there's definitely been times when like I've definitely heard like a famous artist or whatever definitely spit something like almost the same as something I had written, and I'm like, fuck, I already wrote that, and nobody's ever gonna hear it, and now I can't even use it. That's definitely happened before. But other than that, I don't know. I never really thought about that in depth.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I brought that up is because you had mentioned Nas, and I remember the Message is probably the one beat that's responsible for me getting into music in general. I remember listening to that song, and it was magic to me, and I thought it was the best beat ever created, and I needed to find out how it was created. So that's why I brought it up. There were beats like that. Another beat that I can think of like that. I mean, anything pretty much the RZA made, I wish that I made. Some things from Timbaland. There were these pieces where I was just like, man, I really wish that I was the one that created that. So that's why.
I mean, you're talking in that regard. I mean, definitely, whatever RZA back in the day. I mean, DJ Premier, obviously, one of the best to do it.
Absolutely.
Stuff from them. I imagine I wish I could do what they do. But yeah, I mean, those two alone are definitely standouts as far as beats, and wishing I had that type of capability to make stuff that dope.
Absolutely.
But yeah, much to like you said, you started trying to rhyme a little bit, realized it might not have been your thing.
Yeah.
I just made my own beats for the first time on that last album, Grown, that came out in November. And as happy as I am with how that came out, I still know deep down, like the pen and pad is definitely my thing over making beats for sure. Was fun to do it, and I'll still probably do it when the time is right, even if it's just for fun. But I prefer people to just continue to send me beats to write to.
Sure. So what is it like, kind of being an artist that grew up in what I consider the golden age of hip hop, which was 90s hip hop, where, boom bap was the sound of hip hop. That's what hip hop sounded like. To, fast forward 2021, where, drill / trap is kind of the sound of hip hop. And kind of going through your catalog, you're kind of staying true to the art form that you were brought up in. What is it? Do you have any difficulties? Are there any doubts that you may have where it's like, am I just an old man in a young man's game, trying to live out a dream that may never be? Are there doubts like that creep in at night?
I hear you. As far as like the whole, living the dream and me worried about this and that. Yeah. I definitely am 1,000% not worried about that, because
that's dope.
I'm very fortunate that over the years, even back then when I was making music, I always knew I was not going to invest 100% in it. And I was just going to be like, this is all I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to invest all my money. Yeah. I had the foresight to be like, I'm going to make sure I have real income, real benefits, like have my shit together. I'm going to make music. If something comes of it more than what it is now, that's great. But especially now, since I came back, like it's the least stressful and most fun I've ever had making music, because I'm not relying on it to do anything besides just continue to just make dope music and get my my feelings out, to vent, to make stuff for other people, hopefully help other people in the process. So for me, there's like no pressure. It's like the most fun I've had making music ever. There's no expectations. and then, far as the style and staying true to, the form, the boom bap and the old school stuff that, I grew up on, that I'm just stuck in that. Like, I don't listen to the radio. You could play 50 songs that have been on the radio the past, I don't know, 5 years or something, and I probably wouldn't know any of them. Like,
Sure.
It's just not my thing. When it does come on, if I'm stuck somewhere and I have to listen to it, I'll listen to it, but it's not my style. I don't dig it. I don't like mumble rap. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And my music now is, it's old school, but it's different too. I feel like it's classic, like with a twist. Like, I think Devil at the Pulpit's like a really good example of, it's the hip hop, like real hip hop cats, the underground dudes, like the people that grew up on the stuff we grew up on enjoy. Yeah. But it's got a little flair. It's a little different. It's a little off the beaten path. Like, I don't want it to sound exactly like, a Nas record or a Mobb Deep record or Wu-Tang or whatever. So I wanted to attract those kind of people, but I want it to have its own kind of sound and story to it. So
sure.
Well, the thing that I've really noticed about it is that the production, especially on like Devil at the Pulpit, is sort of new school in a way where they're not like trap beats and shit, but it's definitely a more current style of production with, a more old school style of rapping. It's kind of like a nice marriage of the two things. So
it's to me, it sounds like boom bap in HD.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's a perfect.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's like it's updated in a way that it's fresh and current, but still has that old school feel to it.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly the type of music I want to make, and I say it to people all the time. I said, and me and Tali, both the producer on Devil at the Pulpit, both say it. It's like the stuff we make might not appeal to everybody. But that's not what we're here to do. It's, the people that do rock with it and get down with it, that's dope. But if some people don't enjoy any of it, I mean, it's no hard feelings either. Again, I'm doing it just to do me. So whoever gets down with it, cool. But if not, that's all good too. My bad. I got some weird stuff popping up on my screen.
No worries. All
right, there we go.
I think it's interesting how, when you were talking about how, you have no real, like no pressure put on you, it almost makes everything a little bit more pure, I would say, because like there's nothing in your way. Like, you're not doing it to live the dream per se. You're not doing it to be financially stable. You're not trying to get famous. You're literally like, you're one of the few people who, like, whether you're making it as a living or not, you're still doing it. Like, there's the cliche, like, I would still be doing this if I wasn't making money. And I feel like, 90% of the time, that's probably bullshit when people say that, where it's like, if they weren't doing it for a living, they just wouldn't be doing it. But you are actually living proof of that exact mentality. And I think that makes the music sort of that much better, because you have nothing, like, there's nothing really standing in your way. Like, you're doing it because you want to do it. And if you didn't want to do it, if you don't like it, you're just not going to do it. And I don't know, I just think that's really refreshing right now, because like there's no avarice to it, to use like a $20 word.
I was gonna say, I might have to get the dictionary up. I got a good vocabulary, and that one went right over my
head. But there's no like front about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's everything, I do, especially now, is very genuine. And you'll hear that, on Devil at the Pulpit, and you'll kind of continue to hear that, like, my new EP that's coming out, it's with an Italian producer. So I decided to name it Libertà, which it translates to freedom in English. So, and if you've seen the album cover, I could probably pull it up and try to show you too, but
we'll throw it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can do that. Okay, cool.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so like the premise of this, it's a short, like 5-track EP, but again, I always like the title of it to really have a little bit more of an underlying meaning, much like Devil at the Pulpit, which there's a whole backstory to that too, which we could talk about if you want. But
for sure.
The Libertà, the freedom was the technically the first thing I started to write to even before Devil at the Pulpit. It just happens the way things landed. This is coming out after that. But it was basically like me finally, again, being like, fuck the formula, fuck what people think you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to go about it, what you're supposed to say, what you're not supposed to say. You know, again, there's no pressure. I'm just doing whatever I want to do. I'm going to rhyme how I want to rhyme. I'm going to do this, do that. And that's something I always struggled with over the years. I always feel like, oh, you know, I gotta do this type of joint or come out with this type of project because this is what the general population wants to hear, and this is what's popular. This is the type of crowd I want to get into. And I got to the point, I'm just like, fuck it. I was like, I'm just gonna make whatever I want, and that's gonna be that. So like the first, the one single I'll probably drop off the EP. It starts, I'll do just a couple bars to make the point. It's like, I ain't no tough guy. I never try to be, but on this mic, I give you everything inside of me. That's true strength, and within it lies the irony. Now that I'm being railed, everybody ride with me. So, and like, that's like the perfect point. It's like, I'm just being true to myself ever since I dropped Grown, and I've had more fans and appreciation for my music than I ever had. And that's kind of the point of the next EP.
That's dope. I mean, it's probably because you're genuine and people kind of feel that vibe across the speakers. You know, they feel that it's sincere. They can hear that it's sincere. And I think that's dope. You know, going through your socials, I did notice that you are part of the, I believe it's called the Good Dad Gang. And so for those who don't know, it's actually a clothing line by a local artist here in Massachusetts, a guy named Terminology, who's actually one of the bigger artists to come from this region. You know, and what's really dope is, you know, he is a street rapper, but you know, one of his core values is being a good father. And you know, obviously, you had mentioned your kids before, and kind of going through your socials, you are a proud father. My question for you is, I suspect that you and I grew up on very similar music. And with that, I assume that you grew up listening and loving a lot of ignorant shit, right? Right?
Yep.
Now, being that when you became a father, did your perspective on music change at all? Did you change the way that you made music? Did it change the way you felt about the music you grew up living after having a child, your first child?
That's a good question. Yes and no at the same time. I definitely, and very much so on Grown in particular, I know Dave's heard it. That album is like very much my like coming of age and like becoming just like a man and becoming a father and becoming responsible and putting a lot more time and thought and energy into being a dad and like being very aware of what I really want to be in this life, even more than, you know, an artist. It's to be a good dad and to be there for my kids. So as far as me making music, it's very hard I would love my kids to be able to hear every single song I make and them all be positive and, you know, no profanity and stuff. I think we all know that's not very realistic.
No.
I can only make so many songs, like the song Everything, which was the last track on Grown, which is about my son and my wife at the time. I now have a second son, but it's like the most heartfelt stuff like I've ever done. And like one of my favorite songs I've ever done, but you can't make every song like that.
Sure.
So, you know, it's going to be great for my kids when they grow up, as they get older, you know, they can listen to stuff like that. They are going to hear some of the flip side type of stuff. That's some of that ignorant shit. So, you know, I'm just going to say, sorry, kids, you know, this is what daddy did. But, you know, I am very much aware and mindful of of that, and the fact that they are going to hear this stuff and understand it at some point. So he said they'll hear some of the not so positive things, but they're going to hear a lot of good stuff. I have an unreleased joint in particular with a very one of my favorite DJs and a legend, frankly, in Boston, Fax One.
Okay.
We have an unreleased joint. I don't know when that's going to come out, but it's a song like that, you know, God forbid I die in a week. That'll be the song like I want my kids to have forever.
That's so. That's
so. Hopefully that answered your question.
No, 100%. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can jump onto that because I've worked with Joe for a long time.
You've heard a lot of ignorant shit.
Yeah, and there's definitely some songs, some very unreleased songs from back in the day. One I'm thinking about in particular.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've noticed a very clear progression, and it's like there's two phases of JFliz. And there's like the phase that I was more a part of. I guess I'm still technically a part of this one.
Yes, you are.
But like the maturity is like next level, in my opinion. Like it's like two different people. Where I would also say that there was some definite anger in your old music and some of it. Like if you put out this project called Brutal is Beautiful. That's a very angry record. I mean, circumstantially, there was like, you know, shit going on at the time, but
yeah.
You know, but do you look back on any of that and like cringe at all, like when you hear some of it, or like do you bristle at any of it?
Yeah, no, I do. Like Brutal is Beautiful, like in particular is a record that I actually don't like have up on like my Bandcamp. Because the project didn't end up being done the way it should have been done for multiple reasons. Some of the lyrics are like even too much for me to kind of stomach at this point. Some of it is dope, and who knows, like I could end up, you know, refreshing some of that and bringing it back in like a different format at some point. But yeah, there's some stuff like that one in particular that's like, I don't even, when people ask me about like my albums and stuff, like I won't even bring that one up. And that was still shortly within like the year or two after my dad passed away, that I still had like a lot of anger and stuff. It was kind of like the tail end of like getting the last of all that poison out of me type of, so to speak. The one good thing I'll say about like In Light of Darkness and Brutal is Beautiful is that anger and like that gruff, like gravelly type of tone you hear on my vocals even now is where that came from. Like if you listen to All From Nothing and then you listen to In Light of Darkness, the tone in my voice is way different. And that's actually still the tone that I use now. I kind of just fell in love with the way I sounded like that on the mic. And now like with Devil at the Pulpit, there's been multiple like album reviews and stuff that have come out. And like a lot of people are like, his distinct, like gruff kind of voice and tone, like just sucks you in. Like he sounds so hungry. And people really tend to gravitate for whatever reason towards that tone in my voice. So though that did come from stuff like Brutal is Beautiful, which the content itself, I don't particularly love. And I do cringe a bit if I go back and listen to it now. But it did kind of spawn the tone and the cadence and the whole vibe in which I spit now. So something good came out of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, something great came out, but it's also just, it's a part of your evolution. So it's like,
I was going to say,
I don't mean to say that, like, do you cringe? Like, that's not
I know
any of it was bad or anything, because I've enjoyed all of it, but
yeah,
you know, it's just like when you reflect.
No, for real. I mean, like you said,
the
the person I am now compared to then is completely different people, and how I approach things and what I rhyme about it's just so very different.
Right.
So
like the person, like the JFliz of NOB is like a very specific person.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, I was a drunk 20-something-year-old asshole.
Right. We were all 21, 22 when that was happening. So it was
Yeah,
like
I mean,
very,
just
very
very
specific.
very different, but I mean, mad fun. That was definitely one of the best times of my life, as crazy as it was. That was a lot of fun, and it was a good experience. And again, being in the band, I've said it 100 times, that shit made me a 10,000 times better MC, because it's one thing to sit in a recording booth and rock a mic, or be on stage with just a couple speakers and somebody playing, your beat through the speakers. Performing with a live band and live instruments and trying to rock a crowd and do your thing is 10,000 times harder than just doing a straight hip hop type of set. So that forever made me a better MC, hands down.
And the last, like, since Grown, like, you are literally all over the world right now. Like, you've had your song played in
Online,
Germany, but still, like, your presence is, you have an international presence. And just like your self-promotion has just been amazing from my point of view. So when Grown started to take off, like, did people just start coming to you, and then you just sort of started to form connections through that? Like, how did that whole process start for you in terms of getting your music, like, out there? Because your music is much more present than your older music, it seems.
For sure. Yeah, it was a little bit of both. Like, I definitely, just being on social media and primarily Instagram, that's kind of where I really do most of everything. It was just like me, searching, looking for different, like, either podcasts or radio stations or, blogs and different stuff like that. And I just kind of did a whole ton of research and looked up different places and, spots I think that my music would be, would go over well.
Yeah.
So it kind of just started there. I mean, when I first did it, it was probably like, 10 or 15 places. And then, like, like with Instagram, like, it says like, oh, you follow this person, maybe you should follow this person type of thing. So, like, I would just keep looking, I'd keep diving around, and I just kept finding, more and more contacts and, radio stations and whatever else. And now I have like, a master list of spots, and it's long. And it's stuff that's local to Germany, to England, to Luxembourg, to, I mean, like you said, kind of all over the world, but just a lot of different radio stations and podcasts. Like, a lot of cats now do like Mixcloud. They have like their own shows now, which some of them are like relatively popular, some, not so much. But like me, again, I don't care if one person listens to one of my songs or 1,000 people listen to it. Like, anybody who listens to something and shows a little love is cool with me. But that's pretty much how it started. It was just kind of reaching out, and then, I'd send out a single and then keep people informed. And, since then, more people have reached out, and that's how different DJs started, producers started hitting me up, and it's just kind of spawned from there.
That's awesome. Now, when you have something new coming out, like, do you reach out to all of them, or do you just start promoting it on your Instagram and people just sort of start asking you for the single? Or, like, do you have an X amount of people that you're going to send something to when it's time?
Yeah, like, I have, like, at this point, like, all my contacts that I'll blast out the single to everybody. Whether it's radio stations here in New York to everywhere, there's, a big, like, master list that I'll send it out to. But again, there's been multiple times now at this point, which I find more humbling, is when I get tagged all of a sudden on some, like, random radio station that I don't even know about. Like, it just happened over the weekend. This station, like Quantum Leap Radio down in Houston, Texas, all of a sudden just tagged me. So I flipped it on, and the dude was like, oh, JFliz, Better Way from Devil at the Pulpit, and another radio station. I didn't even know about them, and they obviously heard my stuff somewhere else and they liked it, and they picked it up and started playing it. So, it's all been organic growth. Like, I haven't been doing any of that pay for playlists on Spotify and that bullshit. Like I couldn't be bothered wasting my money on that. And so I can say, oh, I got 20,000 streams on this album, but meanwhile you didn't. I don't play that game. I think that's whack as hell. But yeah, so like I said, it's just been organic and me reaching out to people, and then people reaching out to me, and it's just kind of evolved. Even though it's only been like 6 months since Grown dropped, it's been crazy.
And how do you feel about it? Like, because does it overwhelm you at all? Like when you hear that like your record is being spun in fucking Germany or Luxembourg or something like that? Like,
yeah,
like what goes through your head when you get that notification?
I mean, at first it was like, mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to like sound like snobby or like anything at this point, but like I'm getting used to it. So like before I was like, oh shit, I gotta post about this right now. Like people need to know this just happened.
Right.
And now like it's dope. And I still, when it happens, I still will repost it at one point, and I'll give everybody love that shows me love. Like now I'll like when Devil at the Pulpit came out, I waited like a full week or something, and I combined like basically everybody who shared my song or posted about it or whatever, and kind of put them into one big like thank you for showing me love type of thing.
Yeah.
Because like when Grown came out, I was posting like every friggin' 5 minutes because somebody was playing it or somebody was promoting it or doing whatever, which was awesome. And I was just like so amped up that I was finally getting attention and love for my music. So now like that I'm used to it, I'm not like so giddy to like just blast it back out there and retweet it and all that shit. But but it's definitely good to, know that they're appreciated, that the fact that, they're supporting my music. So
yeah. You had Grown out in November. You had Goodness Victims in January. You had
Circles in February.
Circles. I was about to say it's Sixth Floor, but it was Circles.
Yep, by Sixth Floor. Yeah, he was the producer.
Devil at the Pulpit just dropped, and then you have your next album coming out in June.
Yep.
And then, so how did you? Was it a conscious decision to put something out every month?
I didn't plan on it being that way. But when I realized how many people were reaching out to me and looking to work, I didn't want to say no to anybody, because like they say, you got to strike while the iron's hot.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact people have been hitting me up and, wanting to work with me, I was like, I'm not going to say, I mean, unless somebody sends me like something super whack, then I'll politely decline. Sure. But for the most part, like everybody that's hit me up it's been dope. And I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. So, we dropped Goodness Victims. I dropped Circles. I dropped Rescue in March.
Yep.
And then we rolled into Devil at the Pulpit. So like I said, I got a couple more feature joints that are dropping. The new EP, and it just I just had so much when I realized that's what was happening. I was like, shit. I was like, it would be dope if I can drop something every month for the rest of the year. It may or may not pan out, but it's gonna be close. And it's just, I don't know, it's a fun way to just keep people engaged and just stay relevant, because people will forget about you so fast. I mean, there's so
fast.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff coming out, and stuff gets overlooked, and people get overlooked, and there's people 20 times doper than me that probably don't get enough attention that they deserve it. And, so I'm just, I want to put out consistent stuff, but I want it to be dope enough that it's worth putting out. I don't want to rush anything and just to say I did it. But if I can keep putting out quality shit and people are enjoying it, and I can keep consistent and keep on the top of people's minds, I'm just going to keep rolling with it. I do think I'll slow down a little bit and rolling to the end of this year and into next year. I'm going to be a little more particular with what I do and when I put stuff out.
Absolutely.
I feel like this year was like to really build up like a fan base, a small fan base. And, now that, up to the point where I think people like won't forget about me if I take a month or two off, and when I drop something, they're like, oh shit, a new Fliz track or whatever, and they'll still be there. So this year is really trying to kind of build it up and just be in people's faces. So
Yeah, man, it's all about that momentum. And I think the
Yeah,
cool thing about that is it's not like you're dropping full records like every single month. You know what I mean? It's like it's cool that it's
yeah,
like, you'll put out an album, then there's just a bunch of random singles, then there's an album, then there's an EP, then there's gonna be a few singles, and it's all like just enough to keep
yeah.
everybody in, and you're not sort of like burning it out. You know what I mean? And it's all sort of
Agreed.
different. It's not part of the same project. So
Yeah,
there's a nice diversity to what you're putting out
for
that,
sure.
because I feel like when somebody says like, oh, this person's doing like something every month, I would worry that might be a burnout, but I feel like that's not gonna, that isn't gonna happen because you're not putting out enough to burn people out. You know what I mean? Does
Yeah,
that
no,
make sense?
yeah, no, I agree. I think it's like a happy medium. Well, like you said, like I just put out the album, I'm gonna drop a couple singles, I'll put out an EP of some other stuff. There'll be another 8-track album. Hopefully there'll be a full-length album coming out by the end of the year, some stuff sprinkled in between then. So like I said, hopefully it won't be overkill, but enough to, again, just keep people engaged pretty
Right.
consistently.
Because then when you do sort of slow down, people will just want it that much more when it's time to get a new thing, because it's like everybody's so used to getting
Yeah,
so much of you that they're like, oh my god, what's going on, and he's not putting something out right now.
fiending for
And
that
then
JFliz.
exactly, like that's sort of, it seems like that's the direction
Yeah,
it's
we'll
sort of
see what
organically
happens.
moving toward.
Hey, I got a weird question for you. Are
Yeah.
you still making albums? And what I mean by that is, are you making songs with the idea of it being a piece of an overarching theme that is an album? Because I mean, when you think about it, the album is kind of an outdated concept, right? Where the industry is single driven,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, we live
Kind
in
of,
the age of the single. Yeah.
that's kind of the instant gratification age that
Yep.
we're kind of living in. Are you still making albums like with themes?
100%. Like I said, that's why I kind of like having the one-off singles, because you can't just drop a joint and it'd be fun and keep people engaged, and then it gives you time to work on the albums.
Sure.
I mean, like, again, Dave can attest, Grown is 100% an album. I mean, there's the concept, the content, the entire continuity of it. It's very cohesive. Like, you get the point of that album. I mean, it says it right in the title.
Yeah.
And Devil at the Pulpit is very much the same. Grown was kind of like a one chapter and kind of this story that's been happening. And Devil at the Pulpit, which we can get into a little, it represents basically the demon and the darkness inside of me that I've been trying to get out of me, and trying to reach for that pulpit and try to find that salvation. And that is kind of the whole premise behind the title and the cover art and the whole thing. And on the last track on the album, The Pulpit,
which is my favorite track that you
have.
Oh,
word, you heard it.
Scanning through your body of work, that song is probably my favorite track. I think that shit's fire.
Thank you, bro. Dave got to see me perform that live a couple of weeks ago.
And it was something to behold.
That song's fire.
Thank you. So again, that's another example of like, that's an album. It's not just a bunch of songs just on a record. It's not quite as cohesive as Grown, but there's a point to it. There's a beginning and an end to it. Sure. The Pulpit, in my opinion, is one of the strongest final tracks on a hip hop album that's come out in a while. And I'll never say shit like that about my own music, but I think that song, and the premise of the song and the content in the song and the strength and the everything about it is just wild. That joint's super special.
I will say it is a great, last impression for sure.
Thank you.
Of the album.
Thank you. I'm glad you peeped it. I wasn't sure if you actually heard it or not yet. So.
No, I heard it. Actually, I took notes of the song. So Grind was my joint.
Nice.
The Pulpit was my joint. The joint you did with Dave was fire. I like that one.
Oh yeah,
can't-
that song's
I can't
awesome.
I can't read my handwriting. It's something Gates. Something
Oh, Out the
Gates.
Gates.
Out
Yeah.
the gates. Out the gates. I thought that was a dope joint too. Those are the ones that really stuck out to me.
Nice. Yeah, Out the Gates is definitely a banger. That's like the posse cut.
Yeah.
That's definitely me at like back to like my old like gritty, grimy, like don't give
Sure.
a fuck, just I'm gonna tear your face off type of rap.
Yo, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No.
you know, I come up with weird descriptions of what I hear.
Uh-huh.
In listening to your album, what I heard was Billy Blunts and Timberland boots.
Nice. Nice. That's what's up. That's all right. I'll take that. Yeah, I mean,
but it had that East Coast kind of gritty, kind
mhm.
of street kind of music. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's kind of the vibe that I got from it.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying. It's that boom bap-ish East Coasty type of vibe, but it's got a little bit of twist. It's a little bit updated. It's a little bit different,
Sure.
which Tali is very good at doing that. His beats are wild. Anything you ever see that he puts out, it's worth listening to. He's like an alien. He really is.
Dope.
Yeah.
And I now what producers are you working with for your next project?
So my next EP that's coming out is this cat from Italy. His name's Sela.
Yep.
It's kind of funky. It's X3LA is how he spells it out. But I think the 3 is supposed to be an E.
Yeah.
So it's Sela. But yeah, so I got that coming out with him on the 22nd. That's the Libertà EP I was telling you guys about.
Yep.
Now, real quick, is that sort of in terms of making albums? Like, is that on that sort of tip where there's like is there a specific theme to that project?
Maybe not quite as much. It's the concept of the actual title, the freedom thing.
Yeah.
It's more of like, most people wouldn't know it unless I explained it. It's more of that me just like, again, doing what I want, writing what I want, not worrying about the formula and kind of what people expect. Like, it's mad different. Like, I got a joint called Crop Circles on there that I'm actually going to drop a visual for. This like kind of crazy, weird, like snippet video type of thing I put together. I dropped like that thing I sent you the other night.
Yeah.
That little weird thing with the chick.
Yeah, it's creepy as hell, and I love it.
That's
I'm in for it. So,
so like I got someone like that, and like it's about aliens and the government, and you know how AIDS was man-made, and you know how they're pharmacists are the real drug dealers and shit like that. So like I got something like that.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like an off the wall type of joint. Like most people
Sure.
wouldn't come out with and do something like that. But again, it's kind of that freedom. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. That beat hit me that way. I've had like this weird shit in my head. I was like, I'm just gonna kind of go with it. So like I said, that's kind of the premise of that EP. I said there's not an overall theme to it. Like Devil at the Pulpit, I wouldn't say. This one's a little more kind of loosey goosey, kind of have fun with it, but it's a dope little appetizer of an EP for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So dope.
Yeah, and I said, and there's more coming. I got another. I don't know if you call them EPs or LPs. Like I got another 8-track project coming out with another Italian producer named Maro, who's super dope. And that's probably gonna come out like I don't know, like August maybe. So that's all done, and that's kind of just getting wrapped up. And then again, I have hopefully another full track album that's coming out, a 10-track album that's coming out later in the year too, with my dude T the Human out of Pennsylvania, who's nuts.
Now, are you releasing any of these songs under a record label, or do you own a publishing company that's tracking all these spins?
No, I'm just some schmuck from the suburbs who's just fucking making music in a spare bedroom and putting it out to the world.
Sure.
I wish I had that capability. I wish I was on a record label. I know some people just start record labels.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you go about doing that, to be honest. I've never really looked into it, but
Sure.
that'd be dope.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least having, your own publishing company, if you're getting spins in Germany or Italy or wherever, granted it'll be very short money, but you'll have a work order number attached to your works. And you could potentially get paid. I mean, and I guess this would be a good problem to have, but if one of your songs just happened to blow up,
right,
and you get these crazy amount of spins in a short period of time, I mean, there's no way for ASCAP or BMI to track how much you should be paid as a result of these spins, So these are things, every artist, should consider. But, it sounds like you're not really in it for that. You don't really have any high expectations. It's just, hearing that, it's one of those stories that, you would so happen to blow up and like you would have to scramble to get your business in order.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. It would suck at the same time if I, lost out on dollars that I could have potentially made, of course.
Sure.
For sure.
Because I'm certainly not feeding my kids off of Spotify streams. Which is funny because me and Tali Rodriguez, we're gonna have a joint coming out together, produced by Sixth Floor. And I use that very specific line in the song. I say something, and I say my kids ain't eating off them Spotify streams, and it's so true, man. Spotify's a joke, man. I'd legit rather people just go to my Bandcamp and listen to my shit for free, or give me $2 and buy my shit and do whatever they want than the 0.44% of a cent that they pay us for a stream. It's a joke. But again, I'm not in it for the money, so it doesn't matter. But
Bandcamp
it's pretty wild.
Where it's at.
Bandcamp's super popular. It seems like the platform everybody, tends to use. I definitely liked it. I like I just put my stuff up there. I can, put my price, I can sell merchandise off there. I had hats up there. When I do albums now, I do CDs, I do vinyl. So if cats want to get it on record, they can do that. So I like Bandcamp. It's a good platform.
Yeah. So you have multiple connections in Italy.
Yes.
So there's 3 that I know of anyways that you work with in Italy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that get started? Like you have multiple projects with producers from a completely different country. So how did that get started?
That was basically with my boy Andrea, his aka Amelcore is his his MC name. He was actually a fan of mine back in like 2012 when All From Nothing came out. He actually just heard it. He was like a big Army of the Pharaohs fan, so like I think he heard like Alive with Planetary, and he heard Mike Titans with Esoteric. And he just kind of like messaged me or whatever, and was always like saying, I love your music, yada yada. And we just started, we talked back and forth, and he ended up putting out his first album like a year or 2 later, and he asked me to do a verse for him. I said, yeah, no problem, man, sure. And we've kind of always just kept touch. We shoot the shit, we talk back and forth. And a couple of years ago, 2018, it was actually right before my first son was born. It was the last album I put out. It was called Imported Weaponry. And it was a joint album with him. And it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and like 12 joints. I got all my album covers printed up in my studio. And we put that out together. And since then, like, again, we shoot the shit. And he had a couple of friends who were producers. And back before I started Grown, I was talking to him. I was like, if you got anybody that wants to work on some music or whatever, let me know. He was like, all right. In the meanwhile, I started working on Grown, and I was 100% dedicated to that. Like, I didn't work on anything else. But as soon as I was done, like Selah and Maro, both, they wanted to work. So we started working on those projects. And I said, we got 2 of them lined up and ready to go. So it all spawned from Amelcore, really.
That's amazing. It's just,
pretty cool. I mean, that's the power. That's the cool thing about the internet and why I love social media, because if you use it the way it's intended to be used, is to be social and to be creative and to be productive, it's awesome. We get to do stuff like this. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, there's so many scumbags and idiots and psychos and weirdos on the internet that they give it a bad name and ruin it for a lot of people. But if you're using it the right way, it's amazing. It's the past 6 months for me have been incredible, and it's because of the internet. It is.
Yeah, the internet is crazy place.
Yeah, like you said.
To say the least.
Yeah. We had a song about the internet way back in the day, which is a terribly outdated song at this point because it's about MySpace, which is a dead platform.
Yep.
So you can still. I was on MySpace the other day, looking up.
Still up and running, huh?
It's still a platform apparently that
That's
people
wild.
are on.
Okay, hey, that's okay.
Yeah, if you've ever put music out on it, it's still there.
I do have music on MySpace, so people can go look that up if they want. Definitely not very good. I don't know what it is, but it can't be good.
We'll end it with a philosophical question, right?
Okay.
So Dave and I have had conversations about hip hop and specifically my struggles with hip hop as I age.
Okay.
I'm a 37-year-old man, right?
Okay.
And as I mentioned previously in the podcast, I grew up off of a lot of ignorant shit. And now that I'm older, I see now the influence that the messaging that I grew up with had over me, my thinking, and more importantly, my value system, right? And there was a lot of bad shit I had to shake over time. Which was, a direct influence from hip hop. As you mature as a man, and I'm sure you probably observed similar things. Is that something you struggle with, being an MC and being a, someone of the culture?
I'm trying to think how to answer that question. Say that to me again.
So,
I know what you're saying, but
so for someone like me who grew up in the outskirts of Boston, just north of Boston, I didn't live the thug life.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a time where there wasn't a lot of representation for people that looked like me. Any form of success, from any Black man was some kind of form of entertainment, whether it be sports or, music or what have you. So I felt as though that in order for me to be successful, I had to act a certain way. And hip hop was kind of like the value system that I took on. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad values that are being taught in the genre. And as I get older and I see the pull and the power that the music, now it's literally the most powerful genre in the world.
Yeah.
Right. Therefore, it has the most influence out of any musical genre.
Yeah.
And you listen to drill music and these kids in Chicago and Jacksonville and Memphis are murdering each other. And it's all being accelerated and fueled by the music. And it's something that I really struggle with because at the end of the day, I love hip hop. It's I consider it a deep part of my identity. But I have to kind of call it for what it is. And there's a lot of toxic traits. And I just wonder if you struggle with similar things.
Okay, I got you. Like I said, me personally, that type of music, I don't listen to, I don't enjoy it.
Sure.
But of course I've heard it, and it's a shame because again, music influences everybody. It's, that's what everybody does all day long, whether you're in the car or you're at work and you get your headphones on or like whatever. And if you're young kids and you hear music and you hear gangster rap, and like when we were younger, like the big thing was like NWA, or then it was the Tupac and Biggie beef, and like, and it was just the violence and it was drugs, and they glorified it and they made it cool. And that's what kids aspire to do. Like, Biggie said, I'm either going to be a baller, I'm going to play basketball, or I'm going to sell crack.
Exactly.
You're either going to jump shot or you're selling crack rock.
There you go. That was the exact line.
Yeah.
So, that's, for some people, that was their reality. And that's unfortunate. but then, you know, also when they turn around and they glorify it, it's going to make all younger kids feel the same way and want to do the same thing. And you're not, most kids ain't going to become basketball players. You got a better chance being a crack dealer than a basketball player.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
So they're going to be a crack dealer. Again, not in my neighborhood. You know, I grew up in the suburbs. There wasn't a lot of crack dealers around, but again, I listen to that music. And you know, I never took that type of stuff to heart. Like for me, it was just music. But again, because I wasn't walking out of my house and you know, seeing that stuff up in my face, I wasn't living that life. I enjoyed the music for the music. You know, I enjoyed the lyrics. I enjoyed the storytelling, even though there's a lot of truth to a lot of it. But yeah, so, you know, for me, the music I make now is, you know, it's very honest. It's very truthful. It's, you know, I'll say some ignorant shit, but I'm never going to say, you know, I'm going to come through and, you know, blow your head off and stab your wife and take your money. Some wild stuff like that. Because
but there is a treatment of women aspect of it too that I think that's probably what affects the white youth a little bit more. Is you know, the really hardcore misogyny.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Disrespect of women in
That's
hip-hop,
so true.
which is you know.
I mean, it's scary the way you see kids like dress and act nowadays.
Oh my God.
It's really scary. So I don't know, you know, you hope that, you know, you can only do so much. Parents can only do so much. Once kids leave the house, it's kind of on them. So
that's it.
You just do the best you can when they're under your roof, and, you know, when they leave, you cross your fingers. But I hope that answered your question to some degree.
I just wanted to know your thoughts on it, because it's something that I definitely struggle with, and, you know, for more, you know, for the elder statesmen of hip hop, you know, I'd love to, you know, also get their thoughts and see if they're dealing with the same struggles. And if I may, I have one more question.
Of course.
What is the realest shit you ever wrote?
The realest shit I ever wrote?
Yes. In my Tupac voice.
That would undoubtedly, easily, unfortunately, be my song Depression off of Grown. Again, I very much say unfortunately, because it is very unfortunate that I've dealt with that and deal with that. But it is the realest, rawest, honest thing I've ever written. Hardest and easiest thing I've ever had to write, because of how true it is. But how hard it was to get it out and open up and put it out there. But that was a big driving force behind Grown, and what also got me quite a bit of attention. I had people reaching out to me from literally multiple countries. I got involved with the Noisy Brain through that, which is an online community. They have an online app now and stuff that gears around musicians and people who, you know, will take music to help battle mental health issues and stuff like that. They're definitely worth checking out if you guys want to look into that. But yeah, that's definitely the realest song I've ever written.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
I would definitely,
great track.
Definitely peep it. Like I said, weeks after, you know, that was coming out, I had people coming up to me, you know, that heard it and just like borderline in tears, just being like, I can't tell you what that song just meant to me. Like that made me so happy to know I was helping other people. And it really made me realize, again, what you were just saying, how much music can influence people, whether in a negative or a positive way. Like that song, as hard as it was to put out, I'm so glad I did, because there's been so much positivity to come out of it. It's definitely the realest joint I've ever wrote. So definitely check that out when you get a chance.
Absolutely will.
Cool.
All right, well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show,
My
man.
man.
And we
This was
definitely
awesome.
we should have you back on, maybe
Absolutely.
to have you
Absolutely.
maybe further go into sort of the hip hop question that gets brought up all the time.
And yeah, anytime you guys want to have me on, I know we talked a lot about me. So if you want to just, talk about whatever and shoot the breeze again, man, I'm down anytime.
Yeah,
I
we'll have you
appreciate
back
it, man.
on just to shoot the shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, check out JFliz anywhere you get your music. It's all out there, man, and I highly recommend you check it out. So Fliz, thanks for being here, and thank you all for joining us again on this journey while we figure out what is this podcast. As always, I have been Dave,
I'm your boy Gene.
and we'll see you fuckers in the next one.
Peace.